Good morning. This is a Nikon Z8, and over the last few weeks I've been going out to the landscape and using it to capture landscape photographs. So in this video I'm going to share with you my personal review of this camera. I'm going to share some of those pictures that I've been capturing. I'm going to tell you why I bought the Z8, things I like about it, some of the things I don't like about it, and I'm going to tell you the one small problem I might have with the Nikon Z8. As you can see, this morning I've come to Dartmoor. I'm actually on Bellstone tour at the moment, and normally I whinge and complain at this time of year because I had to set the alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning, so I was up here for about 4:30, but I was just above the fog here and it was all over the landscape. It's cleared up quite a bit now, but it was spectacular. I'll put in some time-lapse videos that I've captured of the fog and the mist rolling through the hills. It was really cool, and just kind of go, yeah, okay. In this instance, it was well worth getting up for. Anyway, back to the video. So yes, this is the Nikon Z8. This is my camera. I bought it, I used my own money to buy it. So this is very much a personal review. This is feelings, my own feelings about the camera. It's not the goal of this video to try and get you to buy one. I'm not trying to persuade you to buy one, but I'm just hoping that the information in this video will be useful to you. Anytime I do a video about gear, I like to come on location to film it. The reason I want to do that is that even if you don't necessarily have any interest in the gear itself, I can at least take you on a bit of a landscape photography adventure as well. Now, I am hoping to take pictures this morning. I mean, the mist has cleared now, which is unfortunate because it was mostly here when it was before there was any light on the landscape. Now, it is past sunrise time, but there was a big bank of clouds, typical, right where the sun's rising, so it might make an appearance shortly, so there might still be an opportunity to capture some landscape photographs. Failing that, I have been busy with this camera, so I've got lots of photographs to share that I've been capturing with the Nikon Z8. So, what else can you expect in this video? Obviously, I'm going to talk about the technical specifications, or certainly the technical specifications that are relevant to me as a landscape photographer. I'm also going to tell you about why I'm going to use this camera more for video, certainly way more than I did with my Nikon Z7, and I'll also talk about some of the things I'll use this camera for that I didn't necessarily buy it for. A couple of things I won't be doing in this video. I won't be comparing the Z8 to a whole range of cameras. I've only got one camera. I bought this one myself. I don't have lots of cameras to compare it to either. The other thing is I pretty well only take landscape photographs. That's what I do. So you won't hear me talking about burst rates, frames per second, fast auto tracking speed. The only exception I'm going to make to that statement, though, is I was lucky enough to photograph one of the biggest rock bands in the world a few weeks ago. Now, I did make a brief video about that, about my experience. It's not a review, but if you do want to hear how I got on shooting a live concert, I'll include a link for that video in the corner of the screen and down in the video description below. But other than that, we'll be talking about this camera in the context of landscape photography. And finally, I'm going to be making a series of videos about the Z8. I've already published some of them already and I've put them in a playlist. So I'll be popping that playlist down in the video description below and at the end screen. But if you want to see more Z8 videos from me, or you just want to see videos from me photographing places like Dartmoor, why not hit that subscribe button? And if you do, remember to click on that little bell icon as well. That way you'll receive a notification as soon as I post up a new video. while I'm waiting for the sun to make an appearance, which I'm pretty sure it is going to make an appearance, not far off, I'm going to tell you about the specifications of the Z8, or certainly the specifications that are relevant to me as a landscape photographer. Now, because I'm rubbish at remembering stuff, I have got it written down, so I've put on my spectacles and let me tell you about the specifications that I'm interested in. It has a 45 megapixel sensor. That is the same resolution as the Z7, because I talk about the Z7 because that's the camera I came from. It is a totally different sensor. It's a stacked CMOS sensor that has no mechanical shutter, so there's no moving parts. It can be completely silent. The sensor has no optical low pass filter, has a base ISO of 64, it can shoot 14-bit RAW files, it has 2 card slots, hallelujah. I know the Z7 II had 2 card slots, but my Z7 only had 1. It always made me a little bit nervous. So those twin card slots, there's 1 CF Express Type B and 1 SD card slot. It has a large bright viewfinder, which is 3690 K dots, which is I think quad VGA, OLED electronic viewfinder, and it will support high frame rates such as 120 frames per second. It's also got a large control display on the top, a 10-pin port. That's also great news. I'll come on to that later on. It is also a weather sealed camera, around the same as the D850 they reckon, but perhaps not quite as good as the Z9. And finally, it weighs 910 grams, so a little bit heavier and bigger than my previous Z7. While the light might not be the best, and I have taken a gazillion shots even from this very particular spot, I feel it would be rude not to get up at this time in the morning and take a picture. So I've got my vertical orientation shot looking across this beautiful set of rocks here, out to the rock stack there and out into the distance. It's a shame all that fog and mist disappeared before the sun came up, never mind. So I've got the camera in a vertical orientation. A couple of things. I'm using an L bracket. Well, I've always used an L bracket. This particular L bracket is a generic one from Three-Legged Thing, I think it is. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure they're going to do one specifically designed for the Z8. Anyway, I'll put the model number of this one up down below in the normal places. A couple of things I like about the Z8. Obviously, now I've got my vertical screen that pops out like that, so that's really good. That I can adjust the height of that so I get a good view of that. That's very good if you're doing a bit of low down shooting or if you're up above the camera. I love that very angle touchscreen. And one of my favorite things, and these again just small things but I like them, it's got a 10-pin port, which means I can get my remote control out that I had for the Nikon D850. It didn't work with the Z7 because it didn't have a 10-pin port, which means I don't have to touch the camera. I can just do that and the picture is taken. A couple of other things I like. I'm probably getting ahead of myself in my review here. I can cycle through the display options and I can have a clear display, and that can be either for the back or through the viewfinder, or both. You know, you can set different options depending on whether you're looking through the LCD or the viewfinder, but I just like the fact that I've got this. You may be asking, oh, can you not just use the timer? Yes, could use the timer. It doesn't have shutter delay, this camera, but they've just reintroduced shutter delay in firmware 4.0 of the Nikon Z9, so it might well come back. But the reason this is particularly useful over and above using the delay is that if you're taking seascapes and you want to time your shots exactly for things like waves, time is a bit hit and miss, which if you've got the commander, you can fire the shutter exactly when you want. Right, the sun is just finally getting above that cloud there. I might get a little bit of soft light. The sky up there, it's looking beautiful. So maybe I will get a decent shot. We'll have a go. Let's keep taking shots and see what happens. It is a glorious morning today. I mean, just look at that view. Does that not make you want to go for a big long walk? In fact, there's still a little bit of mist there just sitting in the valley. But talking of walks, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a walk along there towards Oak Tor, and then when I get there, I'll tell you about the things that I like about the Z8, the reasons I bought the Z8. It is a glorious day. The sun has come out. It's rather warm actually, see I had to take my jumper off, but what a cracking day for a walk. Now that is actually Oak Tor behind me. I've actually walked through it. I did take one picture, either displayed it already or show it in a second. Now the reason I didn't stay there, for two reasons actually. There were some people camping there, and what they didn't need is some boisterous landscape photographer making the videos and waking them up. So I decided to give that a pass, and also there was barely a breath of wind there, and the midges started coming out and it was really quite uncomfortable. So I've come on a little bit further on my way up to Steeperton Tor. But I've stopped here because, well, the views are glorious, and I thought this would be a good time to tell you about the things that I love about the Nikon Z8. Right, I've moved on again because over there was barely a breath of wind and I was getting eaten alive by the midges. So let me tell you about the things I love about the Z8, reasons why I bought the Z8. Now, please bear in mind, I'm coming from the Nikon Z7, so some of the things I talk about might already be present in more current Nikon cameras like a Z7 II or a Z9. So first of all, the viewfinder. I mean, I love EVFs. It's one of the reasons I went to mirrorless, and the EVF on the Z8 is fantastic. It works in all sorts of conditions. It's big and it's bright, and it just makes shooting a real joy. Dual card slots. Now, while the Z7 had one XQD card slot, and you know, they are very reliable cards, it always made me a little bit nervous only having one card slot. So I'm really glad that the Z8 has two, with its CF Express Type B and its SD card slot. Sensor shield, of course. Now this is a little shield that comes down when you turn the camera off, so when you change the lens, dust shouldn't get onto the sensor. I found dust spots on the Z7 a bit of a problem, a bit of a pain, a lot of tidying up and post-processing no matter how careful I was changing lenses. So that's a big tick in the box for me. Fully articulating the screen. The fact that the screen comes out horizontally and vertically is a big benefit to me because I shoot a lot of vertical photographs, and sometimes the camera's quite low down, so having the ability to flip that screen up when the camera's in a vertical orientation is a big win. Sometimes you just can't get your eye down to the EVF. 10-pin port, which I talked about earlier, allows me to use that remote control. What else have we got? Oh yes, talking of remote controls, the timer settings. I think I mentioned this back there. The timer now is, when you set it to 2 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever, and you turn the camera off, is now remembered when you turn the camera back on. That never used to happen. But that didn't matter so much in the Z7 because it had the, I think it was called the exposure delay mode, which it doesn't have in the Z8. As I said, it might make a return because it's just made a return in the Z9, or very confusing. Either way, you should have a timer option or the ability to use a remote commander now. Also, talking about shooting stuff in vertical orientation, the display information, when you flip the camera around into vertical orientation, the shooting information now appears at the top and the bottom of the LCD, so you can more easily read it. You're not turning your head to see what it says. Small things, big difference. Now, I actually did some astrophotography with the Z8 for a separate video, so I'm going to talk about some of the features there. So the first one is that you can illuminate the buttons, so you flick the power switch and the buttons in the back of the camera light up. Very useful in dark conditions or night conditions. And it's got a couple of things well suited to astrophotography as well, which are quite useful. So there's a red light display, and it's got two modes. In the first mode, when you turn it on, all the menus go a red color, similar to where if you're wearing a red head torch. So, you know, white light damages your night vision, or, you know, resets your night vision, I should say. So having things displayed in red stops that happening. So you can have all the menus displayed in red. And then you can put it in the second mode, which is all the menus, plus whatever you're seeing on the picture goes all red. I'm not sure how useful that second one is. And there's also a starlight view, and what starlight view does is it really brightens up the EVF or the LCD screen at the back. So this makes useful for when you want to compose your shots at night. I'd probably turn that off once you've got that composed. They were quite useful. What else have we got? Clear display view. Again, just talk about how useful the information is, the shooting information is on the back of the screen or the EVF, but the ability to turn that off as well is particularly useful for landscape photographers. And the good thing is you can choose all the different display options separately between the EVF and the LCD, so you can have different setups for different views. We also got long exposure time. So Nikon cameras have always really had a 30-second limit on the amount of exposure time that you can dial in. You can now get this up to, I think, up to 900 seconds. So this is quite good if you want to do long exposures and you don't have a remote cord. It's got 2 function buttons at the front of the body, which is quite useful. I've got one set for picture style, because I like to scroll through the picture style. Sometimes I like to switch it on flat, so when you take a picture, the histogram is a bit more accurate, especially if you want to check your dynamic range. So having 2 buttons there to do different things is good. And there's also the autofocus button, dedicated button at the side as well for changing autofocus modes as well. And real bonus is it still uses the EN-EL15 batteries. It comes with a Type C, which lasts longer and are better designed for the Z8, but you can still use your old EN-EL15 batteries, which I will use as backups. And it also means, because they're all the same battery type, I don't have to change my battery chargers. Right, that's all the things I love about the Z8. Now for some things I don't like about the Nikon Z8. And as I don't have my glasses on, that means I don't have a list, which means that the number of items is really short. And to be honest, I'm really nitpicking at this stage. So the first thing is changing the aspect ratio. And this is pretty common in all Nikon cameras as far as I'm aware. If you change the aspect ratio 16:9, see how your picture might look in a different aspect ratio. If you take that picture, it records the raw file in that aspect ratio. And as far as I'm aware, all other cameras, what they do is they still take the full picture, it's just that the preview happens to be in that aspect ratio. So I don't know why they don't change that. It would have been nice to see that in the Nikon Z8. Other thing, card slots. Right, so different card slot types, fine for landscape photography. It's nice to have a fast card slot and a slightly slower SD card slot. It would have been nice to have 2 the same. I do use the camera sometimes for other things, so having the ability to shoot high burst rates to 2 card slots that are fast would have been good. That means I simplify my card reader process as well. And it also would have been nice if in video you could actually record video to both card slots. You can only record it to one, which obviously I set to the CF Express card because it's the fastest one. So you can see I really am nitpicking here. The other thing I would like to see, the Z9 does have built-in GPS. As a landscape photographer, I like to GPS tag my pictures. It would have been nice, not essential, nice to have the GPS module in the Nikon Z8, because let's face it, and it's always been the case, I can get that information from SnapBridge, but SnapBridge is frankly a bit pants. So I'm up on Steeperton Tor now, and as you can see it's kind of clouded over now. It's still very warm, but I think the photography is done for the day. But with all this cloud and this nice light, it's ideal for video. So now is a good time to talk about video, because I have bought the Z8 to do video. I'm a YouTuber, I'm a content creator, so I do shoot video. And in fact, I'm actually shooting this particular segment of the video on the Nikon Z8. Now, let me tell you about some of the video features that I like. So glasses on, list again, here we go. So first of all, this camera has 2 USB-C ports, and one of them can be used for power delivery. So it means when I'm at home and shooting like an episode of On My Bookshelf, I can power the camera from USB, so I can just keep on going. So that's really handy. It shoots 8K up to, I think, 90 minutes or 4K 2 hours before you kind of get that temperature warning light, which is way more than I need. So all this palaver over overheating, not an issue for me. So I'm not really bothered about that. I'm not going to do any real long form recording with the Nikon Z8. 8K though, so I'm actually shooting this at 8K now. What do you need 8K for? Well, I output all my videos in 4K, but having an 8K video file to work from gives me a lot more creative options. I can do a bit of digital zoom in without loss of quality. So I'm going from 8K to 4K, so I can zoom in and I still get a nice crisp clear 4K output. I won't shoot everything in 8K, but it will come in quite handy. And I have been shot some stuff in 8K, and it has been rather handy. Also does slow-mo in 4K, so I can do 100 frames a second, 120 depending on what your source frame rate is, or what your output frame rate is. So I can shoot 100 frames per second, so I've never had slow-mo before, so that'll come in quite handy when I'm doing something heroic, I'm sure. Time-lapse movies, so I use the time-lapse movie capabilities of the Nikon cameras quite a lot. It will be great to have an 8K one to work with, because then I can, again, do digital zooming. You know, it's not the same as obviously having it on a rig, but it just gives me a few more creative options to have that in 8K. It does internal 8K 10-bit recording. So I have been playing about with some of these higher bitrate recording options, and the quality does obviously seem to be a lot better than I get on the Nikon Z8 So being able to do that 10-bit recording gives me more leeway in post-processing as well when it comes to pulling out the highlights and shadows of the video. I can also do 12-bit N-Log if I wanted to. I have used N-Log actually a few times, but I'm still kind of getting to grips with doing that kind of processing that's involved when you shoot N-Log. But it does seem to give me a bit more leeway, because I shoot a lot of B-roll, you know, when the light's low and the contrast is quite high. So having that ability in post-processing to modify that video is quite useful. So that is something I will use. What else have we got? Oh yes, so I've got waveforms on the back of that. So I don't know if you shoot video, you probably know what a waveform is. It's like a more complex histogram for video. It's actually a lot more accurate, a lot easier to use. So I have been making use of that. The record tally light. So on the back of the LCD screen, it puts up a little red box when you're recording. So there's no doubt that you know that you're actually recording. Now, there's no tally light on the front, and also the articulated screen doesn't flip out to face me. So this is where I've still got a small limitation with using this camera for video. With my Nikon Z8 flip out screen, it's real easy to set myself up, make sure I'm in shot, nice and easy. It's just a little bit more difficult with this camera. But unlike the Z7, the autofocus is really good. It does the eye detection, face detection. So I can be pretty sure that I don't have to worry about focus. I just kind of have to spend a bit more time setting myself up where I'm gonna stand. So it's not gonna become a daily sort of video camera like the Z8, but if I'm going away, if it's like a hill walk or camping or something like that, I only want to take one camera, I'd be willing to make the compromise of not having the articulated screen, and I can shoot really good stills and really good video with just one camera. With in-body stabilization, subject tracking, autofocus, 20 frames a second, animal detection, airplane detection, all sorts of autofocus modes, you should be using the Z8 for a bit more than landscape photography. It is an extremely capable camera. And while I did buy my Z8 principally for landscape photography and to do some video for my channel, I will actually be using this camera for other things. It's not why I bought it, but it would be a shame to have the Z8 and not actually put it to good use. So I do occasionally get asked to shoot live music events. You know, every now and again someone comes along and asks me to photograph Muse at Plymouth, which I did, and having the Z8 there was really helpful for that particular shoot. And it would be great for even doing little things like taking photographs of my dog. You know, Monty is great at just sitting there and posing, but now I'll be able to actually get action shots of him with his ears flapping away as he runs along, because I'll be confident that the Z8 can track him and take pictures of him at high frame rate. So I should be able to get some really nice shots of him moving. So yes, the Z8 is potentially overkill for just landscape photography, but for me, it's going to be really nice to know that I've got an extremely capable camera that should any other shooting scenario pop up, I will have the right camera for it. let's see if I can sum up my feelings about the Z8. Now, it probably should come as no surprise if you've watched all of this video that I love my Z8. I think it's a brilliant camera. It feels good in the hand. I don't mind that it's slightly bigger and slightly heavier. It feels rugged. I feel like I can take it anywhere, certainly anywhere that I'd want to go. I like things like the sensor shield, the fully articulating screen, the dual card slots. It's a really, really good landscape photography camera. Plus it does all that video stuff as well, and it's versatile. So for me, it's a really great camera. But at the start of this video, I did say there was one problem. So why don't we go and have a sit down and we'll talk about it. Right, let's talk about something. So when I released my unboxing video when I just got the Z8, I asked people to give me some questions about anything they want me to cover in the review. And one of the most popular questions was, I've got a Z7 or I've got a Z7 II. I don't see the point in the Z8 if I'm doing landscape photography. There's nothing new there for me. There's nothing to compel me. And to a certain degree, I agree with that. For me, it's slightly different. I've listed out all the things that I love and all the features that I like. So for me, that's a slightly different decision. But if you look at it purely from image quality, yeah, I think people are right. There's probably nothing there to compel you to move to the Z8. I think when I went from the D850 to the Z7 and then Z7 to the Z8, I have not noticed any significant change in image quality going from those three cameras. Where I saw quality change was when I went to the Z7, but that was because of the glass. That was because the lenses were a lot better, a lot sharper, especially around the edges. So that's where I noticed a change in image quality. But in terms of resolution and dynamic range, they've been pretty similar across the three cameras. So, and that got me thinking. That got me thinking about a potential problem. And this is probably just a personal problem, to be fair. I love photography, absolutely love it. I love coming out here. I mean, just look at this place, it's just brilliant. I love coming out on these adventures, taking my camera out, taking pictures. I love the artistic side of it, composition, light. I love all that stuff. But there's also another half of me that loves all the tech. I love the gadgets, I love cameras, I love all the features and the bells and the whistles and stuff like that. And I know that's not particularly popular or trendy amongst, you know, real photographers as such, but I do like that aspect of it. And the thing that I'm finding with the Z8, I'm getting near to the stage where, have I got the best camera I'm ever going to need for landscape photography? I've got all these little other features that I talked about, but where does Nikon go next yet? What's going to happen in 2 years' time? Am I going to see myself buying another camera? Potentially not. And you could argue, well, that's a good thing, you don't need to keep buying cameras. But it is interesting. Where does Nikon go from here? Have they now produced a camera that's so good that what new features are going to come down the line to compel people like myself, who like the camera tech, to buy another landscape photography camera? I don't know. And that's the problem. So I would be actually really interested to hear, if you're a landscape photographer, what features in future Nikon cameras would you like to see in terms of, particularly around image quality? Would it be 16-bit RAW files? Would it be more dynamic range, or lower, even lower ISO than 64? I think maybe they could be the things that compel me, but even more resolution is not enough to get me excited. I mean, you've got 45 megapixels. I don't feel constrained in any kind of way with 45. So even if it went up to 60, that's not enough. There needs to be more, and I don't know what that more is. So maybe I've reached an impasse when it comes to my camera tech. I'll be interested to know what your comments are. But yeah, that's the problem. I don't have to buy any more cameras. Probably a good problem to have. Well, I'm going to say something very British just now, and that is, I'm knackered. I'm absolutely knackered. I've got Bellstone Tor just there in the background, so I'm almost back to where I'm started. Still got another few Ks to go before I get back to the car. But I've been wandering about Dartmoor now for sort of over 6 hours, walked over 6 miles, and you know, it's only just gone 10 o'clock in the morning. I feel like I've done a full day's work and I've still got the rest of the day to go. But I do hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me talk about the Z8. Yes, very much a personal review. Not my job to try and convince you to buy one or to trade in your Z7 or to get rid of your D850. because let's face it, the D850 is and always will be the world's best digital SLR. But that wasn't the point of the video. It was just to kind of share my reasons about why I got the Z8. But hopefully that information has been at least useful to you, or you found the journey entertaining. If either of those are true, remember there's a little thanks button down at the bottom of the YouTube window there. I would be really grateful if you consider hitting that thanks button. And if you don't, why not leave me a comment anyway? I really appreciate reading and replying to everyone's comments. Like the video, give it a share. You know, all these things all help the channel, which allows me to do more of this kind of photographic adventure. And if you would like to see more from me, if I haven't bored you enough by in this long video talking, I'm popping up a couple of playlists in the corner of the screen. One of them, I'll make my Dartmoor adventure playlist for photography. And like I said, I've also got that Z8 playlist as well, which can contain the current Z8 videos I've got and the future ones I've got planned. So if you don't want to miss any of those, remember to click on that subscribe button and click on that bell icon as well. But yes, we're finally done. I'm going to go home and have a cup of coffee because, like I say, I'm knackered. But until the next video, I'll see you then.